In this case study to offer an analysis of the visual content of a feature film, I've decided to analyse the third movie in the original Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi. Star Wars relies heavily on visual storytelling, and being set in such a fantastical universe, many techniques are used to draw the viewer in to suspend our disbelief and make it believable. I'm going to break up this video into two sections, the visual style and structure, and the Semiotic Theory, giving examples of each and why I think they help tell the story. The screen is broken up into three sections: the foreground, middle ground, and background. Filmmakers can manipulate this space to give off the illusion that a 2D space is actually a never-ending 3D space that goes beyond the borders of the screen. Using lines like roads and trails that lead off into vanishing point is a great way to achieve this. The more vanishing points present, the deeper the illusion of space. Here are just some examples. In this scene where R2-D2 and C-3PO are walking through the Tatooine desert, the path they are taking extends far into the distance, leading to multiple vanishing points. This is also shown during the establishing shots of Endor. In a movie like Star Wars where we know there is more to the planets than what is shown on screen, and the fact that the in-movie universe is so large, using this technique of perspective and convergence helps us buy into the idea that we are only seeing a slice of this real world. Other examples of depth cues are deep space and textural diffusion. Deep space adds layers to a scene and further adds to the illusion of creating a 3D space. This is achieved by framing a shot and the components that make it up in such a way that it will draw emphasis away from the actual two-dimensional space of the screen. For example, this scene where all of the stormtroopers are lined up in formation is purposely filmed at a diagonal to enhance the scale of the shot. Having some of the troopers close to the camera and some of them far away adds to the audience's dread of the scale of the Empire. Another example of this being this shot here, showing the significant number of rebel forces that have landed on Endor. Textural diffusion is another form of depth cue that is usually displayed in the form of a crowd. Every object has a colour and a texture, and the ability to see depth due to the differences in these details is what leads to this phenomenon. The only good example of this I could find was at the end of the movie, when the crowds of people on all of the different planets are celebrating the rebellion's victory. As you can see, the believable crowds not only add to the scale of the worlds in the way they are laid out, but also adds to the narrative of the triumph of the galaxy feels after the Empire has been defeated. Similarly to lines, shapes elicit a response from the viewer and emotional values can be attributed to them. Straight and curved lines are perceived more as being honest, softer, and gentler, while diagonals and harsh angles are perceived as being untrustworthy, disorientating, and aggressive. As you can see in these two examples, the Rebels' control room looks inviting and safe with its circular layout and curves everywhere. We know these are the good guys. Versus this scene in the Emperor's throne room, there are harsh angles everywhere and a lot of diagonals in the frame that the characters pass in front of. This gives the audience a sense of uneasiness, and it's clear that these are the bad guys. This is also a great example of contrast. The mixing up of lines within the frame leads to greater contrast, which in turn makes the scene become more visually intense. The same principle applies to silhouettes, as shapes seen in shadow show off their lines more clearly. There's no better example of this than Vader himself, whose iconic look that contains many different types of lines intersecting lead to him having an eerie aura wherever he goes. Colours can be one of the simplest tools that filmmakers can use to help tell their story. Using what the audience is familiar with, a filmmaker can evoke a certain response by using specific colours. The best example I could find of this was at the end of the movie in the climactic duel, where Luke, our hero, is wielding a green lightsaber, while Vader, our villain, wields a red one. Green being the colour of life, energy, and safety, while red being the colour of rage, anger, and danger. Without even thinking about it, the audience knows which side to root for without a single word being said. Another great storytelling tool is using light and darkness. This taps into the audience's most primal feelings of feeling comfort in light while being fearful of the unknown darkness. This can be used at both ends of the spectrum, by signalling the arrival of our hero bathed in angelic light, or signalling death by having the light from Yoda's hut fade as he passes. However, I believe this is used most effectively in contrast of each other, the best example being this scene, where half of Luke's face is covered in light while the other half is in darkness. All the while his father is taunting him to give in to his anger. There is no better way to show Luke's internal conflict by externalizing it on his face as he makes his choice. Another form of studying visuals is semiotics, which is the study of signs or the social production of meaning by a sign system. Social agreements over what a sign means leads to filmmakers using them to help tell their story, as the audience will recognize them. There are three main types of signs: iconic, which resembles what it signifies; indexical, a sign that signifiers act as a kind of evidence; and symbolic, a sign that has been arbitrarily linked to another object. Here are some examples of each. This scene here in the Rebels' base shows a map of Endor and the Death Star, a clear use of an iconic sign. Jabba's palace is an indexical sign as it is evidence of the type of person that he is. It is dirty, grimy, and attracts the galaxy's most scummy and villainous people to it. And finally, the fireworks at the end of the movie are a symbolic sign, as we, the viewer, recognise them as a sign of celebration and happiness, and can relate with the characters on screen. I've only had a small chance to touch on the topics that I've covered in this video, and even still, there is plenty more to discuss from the world of visual structure and how it helps shape the movies that we all love. I hope I've helped you understand the tools that all filmmakers can use to craft their story, and how they were implemented to make Return of the Jedi. Whether it's a few friends with a camera, or a galaxy far, far away, these techniques will never fail to amaze audiences. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.